You know that feeling when you feel completely caught between two poles. Like everything is either right or wrong, success or, well, total failure. We often think that's just how reality is.
Mm-hmm. These hard lines in the sand.
Exactly. But what if that's not the full picture? What if those oppositions are just, I don't know, temporary appearances, like waves on a much deeper ocean? Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, let's do that.
Today we're doing a deep dive into some really specific source material. It's the teachings of the second degree, and it's called the Dualistic Illusion and the Wave. Now, this comes guided by the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood.
Right, a lineage that claims to hold wisdom from way back, focusing on how we actually perceive the world around us.
And our mission, really, is to pull out the core knowledge here. Why do these sources insist that all these opposites, good, bad, joy, sorrow, all the things that cause friction, why are they just temporary fluctuations?
And crucially, how can we get that knowledge quickly? How can we find a path to genuine peace, real balance, even when, let's face it, the world feels defined by conflict?
As soon as you open this material, there's this central metaphor that jumps out. It's simple, but powerful. The ocean and the waves.
Precisely. That's the key image. The ocean, in this view, is like the ultimate reality. It's the underlying unity, the thing connecting everything, and it doesn't really change.
Okay.
But the waves, they're the day-to-day stuff. The ups and downs, the chaos, the duality we perceive through our senses.
So the waves are the apparent separation.
Yeah, you could say that. And the Book of Remembrance, which is central here, suggests that mastering this illusion, learning to see the ocean beneath the wave, that's the key. It says it unlocks the true harmony of the cosmos.
Okay, let's dig into that. Because this needs to be more than just a nice idea, right? What do these sources really mean by duality? Because, for someone listening, pain or loss feels incredibly real, not just an illusion.
That's a fair point. It feels intensely real. But the distinction the source makes is crucial. Duality, in the second degree sense, isn't just the existence of opposites. It's the mind's habit of taking these points, good, bad, self-other, and seeing them as fundamental, opposing forces that define everything.
So it's about the mental framework we overlay onto experiences.
Exactly. The conflict arises less from the events themselves and more from how our mind structures them as absolute opposites.
And the source is clear. This starts in the mind, heavily influenced by what our senses tell us, which is often limited. So when we feel I succeeded versus I failed, or judge this is right versus that is wrong.
The text calls them mental constructs, temporary shapes of thought. Think about it. The waves are real in a sense. You see them, feel the spray, but they don't define the ocean itself. They're just energy moving through the water.
Okay, I see the distinction.
And the Book of Remembrance puts it quite starkly. It says, all that we see as separate is but a shadow of the unity that binds us.
A shadow. But I have to push back a bit there, because if you're going through something really tough, say, a major conflict, a loss, calling it a shadow, might feel dismissive. How does this teaching handle the sheer intensity of that suffering?
That's a really important question. And the second degree isn't denying the wave exists or that turbulence feels real. The focus is on identification.
Identification.
Yes. The suffering, according to this view, doesn't primarily come from the wave, the event itself. It comes from the mind latching onto it, identifying with the wave, and forgetting it's part of the larger ocean. The whole point of this degree is to give you a way to disidentify.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
It's not denying the wave, but changing your relationship to it. Which brings us to the tool, right? We need something practical here.
We do, more than just a metaphor. And the specific working tool given is the wave, but it's used actively.
How so?
It's a contemplative practice. The teaching suggests using the wave as a focus for daily meditation, specifically on the principle of impermanence, watching things rise and fall.
Right. And what's fascinating here is the source material doesn't just stay within its own Atlantean bubble. It connects this idea of underlying unity to other major world traditions.
Yeah, that's what makes it quite compelling. It suggests this isn't some hidden secret, but a universal truth that pops up everywhere if you look.
Like where?
Well, they cite, for instance, the New Testament, Jesus saying, I and the Father are one, a direct statement of non-separation from the source.
Okay.
And then they point to the Quran, the verse stating, Allah is closer to you than your jugular vein. Again, this idea of inescapable closeness, intimacy, separation isn't ultimately real. And they even bring in the Zohar, the Jewish mystical text, which speaks of the one dividing itself into many forms, but fundamentally all forms are one, all are one.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, The reason for pulling in these diverse sources is to show that this core idea, seeing reality as fluctuations on a single unified background, is kind of universally recognized.
Pretty much. Whether you call the source Father, Allah, the One, Brahman, whatever, the fundamental teaching lines up. Beneath the churning surface of apparent opposites, there's just one ocean, one consciousness.
And the wave tool is how you train your perception to see that.
Exactly. It's like a lens to see past the illusion of separation. You could almost think of the wave tool as a mental time-lapse camera.
What do you mean?
You observe the peak of joy. You observe the trough of sorrow. Because you consciously watch the movement, the inevitable change, you stop pouring your entire sense of self into that one temporary state, whether it's high or low. You use the wave's own impermanence to remind you of the ocean's constancy.
Okay, so the framework seems solid. Duality is a mental habit. Unity is the deeper reality.
Yeah.
But what does this actually mean for you, listening right now, dealing with bills, deadlines, arguments? How do we apply this?
Right, that's the crucial step, from philosophy to practice. The source outlines 2 key steps: observation and acceptance.
Observation and acceptance, okay.
This is where the rubber meets the road. Otherwise, it's just nice theory, doesn't help when you're scrolling social media at 7 a.m. and instantly feel inadequate, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So step 1, observation. What does that look like?
It requires developing a kind of mindfulness, learning through practice to just watch the waves inside, thoughts, emotions, sensations, without immediately grabbing onto them and saying, this is me.
Just watching.
Yeah. The Atlantean text actually suggests setting aside time each day. Consistency is more important than duration to consciously notice the mental constructs popping up.
What kind of constructs are we talking about?
You're specifically hunting for that dualistic structure, noticing the instant judgments, good, bad, like, dislike, better, worse. Observing the subtle ways you draw lines between you and someone else, between your current situation and where you think you should be.
So you spot the dividing line the moment the mind creates it.
Spot it, maybe mentally label it like, judgment, or there's comparison, and then just let it go without fighting it.
Okay, that's interesting. Because I think most people, when they observe a negative thought, the instinct is to wrestle with it, right? To push it away.
Exactly. And that leads directly to the second step, which is maybe even more profound: acceptance.
Acceptance. This sounds passive, maybe.
That's the common misunderstanding, but here, acceptance isn't resignation. It's not giving up. It's acknowledging the waving, the good feeling, the bad feeling, the success, the failure, as a natural, inevitable part of the whole ocean's movement.
So, like, you accept that waves rise and fall, that it's the nature of things.
Precisely. The source says the rise and fall of opposites is part of the greater flow. If you accept that, you stop treating every peak and trough as a life-defining emergency. The struggle lessens.
We'll stop fighting the wave itself.
You stop identifying with the wave. True wisdom, the text suggests, comes from understanding the temporary nature of the appearance. If you can accept the presence of the opposite, the sorrow that follows joy, the challenge after ease without freaking out, you rob that temporary state of its power to define who you fundamentally are.
The source uses a really great analogy for this, doesn't it? The surfer.
Ah, yes, the surfer. It's a perfect image, especially for navigating modern life's chaos.
How does it apply?
Well, a good surfer doesn't stand on the beach yelling at the waves, right? They understand the wave is the ocean, just expressing itself in a temporary form. They don't fight the water's power. They learn its rhythm.
They become one with the flow.
Exactly, becoming one with the flow of the ocean, as the text says. They use the wave's energy. They embrace the fluctuation.
So, applying that, if you're facing, say, financial stress, you don't just fight the feeling of stress, you observe it. Stress is here. You accept its presence as a temporary wave.
Without letting it define you as, I am a failure or I am stressed. You learn to ride it with awareness, with non-identification. You become the conscious rider, moving with the energy, not just being tossed around by it.
You're the surfer, not the driftwood.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture then, this whole second-degree teaching, this wave tool, it's essentially offering a way to handle the sheer overwhelm and conflict of modern life.
I think so. By practicing with the wave, you gain that specific insight, that knowledge to recognize the dualistic illusion as it happens, and that recognition over time fundamentally shifts how you experience everything.
How does it shift?
It moves from feeling like life is this constant battle between opposing forces to experiencing it as more. Well, the source uses words like interconnected, harmonious, and full of unity. It changes the nature of struggle itself.
From combat to flow,
Yeah.
like the surfer.
Exactly, a fundamental shift in perspective.
Okay, that's a powerful idea to work with. So if we take this core teaching that all separation is just a shadow, a temporary wave on a unified ocean, let's leave you, the listener, with something to consider this week. Think about one specific, maybe recurring, judgment or division you hold on to. It could be about yourself. I am X, but I should be Y. Or maybe it's about someone else or a situation.
Yeah, pick one specific thing.
Right. And just for a moment, apply this tool. Observe that division as a mental construct, a wave. Accept its presence without identifying with it. What happens? What immediate shift in perspective, even a tiny one, does recognizing the impermanence of that specific mental wave enable for you right now, today?